Hi students, it's Mrs. Gifford, and today we're going to talk about section 9.2, translations. Excuse me, and after today's lesson, you'll be able to draw translations. So here's our first vocabulary term, and actually the only one with this section, and it has to do with a translation vector. And basically it's just a map of a translation. It tells you what direction and how far a certain point or shape is going to move. So let's take a look, let's take a look at a couple of examples. The first one is, how do you draw a translation that's not on a coordinate plane? So there's 3 steps that we're going to follow. The first one is we're going to draw a line through each vertex that's parallel to the given vector. Second step, we're going to measure the length of a vector and locate the image points. And then step number 3 is we're going to connect the image points to make the image. So why don't you pause real quick and go ahead and write those 3 steps down, because we're going to use those steps to help us with our first example. Okay, so now that you're back, let's take a look at this first example. We're going to copy the figure and given translation vector. Here's the vector right here, this little red one, vector V, and then we're going to draw the translation of the figure along that translation vector. So as step number 1 says, draw a line parallel through each vertex that's parallel to the vector. So if you look here at step number 1, I have the original figure, and then along each of these I've got a parallel line through each of the vertices of this figure of PQR. Okay, so that's step 1. Step 2 is we need to measure the length of this vector. And so I've actually done that, and I've created, I'll move it down here. I've already done that measuring, and I've created this figure, because step 2 says measure the length of the vector and locate the image points. So what I've done is I've measured this vector V, and I've put the end of it at the original point and just set it right on my parallel line. And then I have indicated where each of those image points are at the end of each of those little red lines, because those are the copies of that vector. Then step number 3, I'm just going to connect those image points to make my image. As you can see, the original one is this bluish tealish color, and then all I've done is take and created P prime, Q prime, and R prime by connecting the ends of each of those vectors. So that's how you can translate a figure using a vector that's not on a coordinate plane. So the next question you might have is, how do we draw a translation in a coordinate plane? And it's actually pretty simple. We're going to simply take any of our coordinate pairs that we have, the XY pairs, and we're going to add the information from the vector to each of those coordinate pairs. So you're going to take your X coordinate, add the first part of the vector, and your Y coordinate, and add the second part of the vector. So again, why don't you take a minute and copy that down. I'll erase that so you can see what letters are in there. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at this second example that we have. We're going to graph the figure and its image along the given vector. And so we're given the points A, B, and C. And so I have created this graph, and I have A, B, and C plotted on my coordinate grid. And then over here, this 4, -1 is the vector. So based on the description of what we had on the previous slide, the first thing that we're going to do is take each of these coordinates. So we've got our XY pairs and each of our coordinates, the 2, 6, 1, 1, and 7, 5. And as that said, you're going to take and add -4 to the X coordinates and add -1 to the Y coordinates. So we end up getting for A prime, -2, 5. B prime is at -3, 0, and C prime is at 3, 4. So what I'm going to do is I've got each of these little primes here, and I'm at these image points, and I'm actually going to plot them on here. So I've got -2, 5. So there's my -2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's where A prime is. And then I've got -3, 0. There's -3, 0. And then C prime is at 3, 4. So there's each of my points, and then I'm just going to grab a line here, and I'm going to connect each of those 3 points as well. Oops, I should make that red before I drew it. And change that one to red. And there you have it. So we've translated both a figure just on a plain piece of paper as well as an image on a coordinate grid. Best of luck to you.